what we talked about last time when we were talking about the Tunguska Event in Siberia, when you had this massive aerial detonation, that was about a 15 megaton explosion. Okay, now that's equivalent to our biggest hydrogen bombs that used to be in the American arsenal.
Today, we're plunging into the heart of Siberia to explore the largest impact event in recorded human history. It's a catastrophe that flattened a forest the size of a modern metropolis, yet left behind no crater, no fragments, and a mystery that baffled the world for nearly a century. We're talking about the Tunguska Event. The date was June 30th, 1908. The location, the incredibly remote, sparsely populated East Siberian taiga, near the Podkamya-Tunguska River. At approximately 7:17 a.m. local time, silence gave way to an unimaginable roar. A celestial object, later identified as a stony asteroid, possibly 50 to 100 meters in diameter, plunged into Earth's atmosphere. It approached at an astounding velocity, estimated around 27 kilometers per second, or Mach 80. Eyewitness accounts, though few, are terrifyingly consistent. People reported seeing a column of bluish light, nearly as bright as the sun, moving across the sky just before the event. Others noted a bright flash, followed by a sound similar to artillery fire. One farmer, Semen Semenov, sitting 65 kilometers away at the Vanawara trading post, described the moment the sky tore open. At breakfast time, I was sitting by the house, facing north. I suddenly saw that directly to the north, the sky split in two and fire appeared high and wide over the forest. At that moment, I became so hot that I couldn't bear it, as if my shirt was on fire. From the northern side where the fire was, came strong heat. This blinding thermal flash was immediately followed by a devastating shockwave. The sky shut closed and a strong thump sounded, and I was thrown a few meters. I lost my senses for a moment. Semenov was thrown about 7 meters by the force. The blast shattered his windows, damaged buildings, and snapped an iron lock on his barn, despite being dozens of miles away. Closer to ground zero, nomadic Evenki reindeer herders suffered far worse. One elderly herder was reportedly thrown against a tree, an injury that led to his death. Though the region was desolate, the death toll was thankfully low, with reports suggesting only 3 people were killed. The energy released in that moment is difficult to comprehend. Scientific estimates range from 10 to 30 megatons of TNT. That means the Tunguska explosion was roughly 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima.
The immediate destruction was staggering. The airburst flattened an area covering more than 2,100 square kilometers. An estimated 18 million to 80 million trees were toppled in a radial pattern. This was not a local accident. It was a planet-wide event. The ground shockwave registered on seismic stations across Eurasia, equivalent to a 5.0 magnitude earthquake on the Richter scale. The atmospheric pressure wave was so powerful it was detected by instruments in Washington, D.C., Germany, Denmark, and the United Kingdom. Some analyses even suggest the wave propagated twice around the world. But perhaps the most bizarre fallout occurred in the sky itself: the bright nights. For several nights following the explosion, the night skies over Europe and Asia glowed.
People in London and Scotland reported being able to read newspapers at midnight by the strange nocturnal luminescence. This bizarre incident should have triggered an immediate investigation. But due to the utter remoteness of the site and the political upheaval engulfing Russia at the time, including World War I and the Russian Revolution, the world had other priorities. The event faded into legend, shrouded in mystery. More than a decade passed before any serious attempt was made to determine what happened. The man who finally pierced the mystery was Leonid Kulik, a Russian mineralogist. Kulik was convinced the explosion was caused by a massive iron meteorite. He argued to the Soviet government that he might find tons of meteoritic iron that would be worth a lot of money, securing funding for his trips. Kulik led his first full scientific expedition in 1927, 19 years after the blast. When he finally reached the epicenter, he was confronted by a scene that completely shattered his theory. He expected a giant hole in the ground, a massive crater. Instead, Kulik discovered the biggest surprise of all: no crater. The single fact that it was an atmospheric explosion rather than a ground impact is the central element explaining the enduring mystery. What Kulik found was even more peculiar. He documented the radial pattern of 80 million felled trees. But at the very center of the blast, he found a zone about 8 kilometers across where the trees were still standing upright. These trees were dead, charred, and completely stripped of their branches, resembling a forest of telegraph poles. This observation was the key. It was the signature of a blast wave that had come directly from above, snapping off branches with powerful downward force, but lacking the lateral momentum to topple the trunks. Kulik died during World War II, never having found the large meteorite fragments he sought. The mystery intensified.
The fact that the cause was unknown for so long, compounded by the secretive nature of the early Soviet investigations, created a vacuum filled by a century of extraordinary speculation. Some people proposed that the explosion was caused by a crashing spaceship. This theory actually originated from a 1946 science fiction story by Soviet engineer Alexander Kazantsev, who was inspired by the devastation of Hiroshima. His purely fictional idea of a nuclear-powered Martian spaceship was later confused with actual events, fueling decades of speculation. Another famous speculation linked the event to inventor Nikola Tesla. This theory suggested that Tesla caused the explosion from his Wardenclyffe Tower in New York as a failed experiment in wireless power transmission. However, this theory is unsupported by any of Tesla's records or any known physical mechanism. Then there were theories straight out of the frontiers of physics. In the 1960s, scientists proposed the antimatter hypothesis, that an anti-rock had annihilated on contact with the atmosphere. This theory was quickly falsified when later measurements found no corresponding spike in atmospheric radiocarbon. Perhaps the most famous was the micro-black hole hypothesis. In 1973, physicists proposed that a miniature black hole had passed through the Earth. This was a highly testable theory. It predicted a second shockwave as the black hole exited the planet. Scientists quickly examined records but found no sign of any wave from the predicted exit location, leading to the theory's rapid falsification. These theories eventually fell by the wayside as scientific analysis provided solid, material evidence. The smoking gun remained elusive until expeditions in the 1950s and 1960s. These later teams discovered physical evidence that was crucial to solving the mystery: microscopic spheres scattered throughout the area. These spheres, found buried in the ground or in the resin of felled trees, were not large fragments, but tiny, milted droplets. They contained high concentrations of nickel-iron alloy, often found in meteorites, along with numerous other unusual metals. This discovery was the definitive proof. The impactor was extraterrestrial and had almost completely vaporized, raining down upon the taiga as a fine, microscopic mist of molten rock. This evidence supported the airburst hypothesis. The object had entered the atmosphere, compressing and superheating the air ahead of it. At an altitude of 5 to 10 kilometers, the thermal and aerodynamic stresses overcame the object's strength, causing it to disintegrate instantaneously. For decades, the final mystery was the impactor's identity. Was it a rocky asteroid or an icy comet? Comet supporters pointed to the bright nights phenomenon. Asteroid supporters pointed to the physics. The low explosion altitude implied a denser, stronger object, a stony asteroid. Crucially, the discovery of microscopic silicate spheres, magnetite, and shock-metamorphosed quartz are all definitive signatures of a rocky body. Today, the scientific consensus strongly favors a stony asteroid. This consensus was cemented in 2013 with the Chelyabinsk meteor event. This smaller airburst over Russia provided empirical proof of concept. Chelyabinsk demonstrated that a stony asteroid could explode in a massive atmospheric airburst, vaporizing most of its mass and causing extensive ground damage without leaving a primary impact crater. Chelyabinsk became the Rosetta Stone for Tunguska.
The explosion in 1908 was a catastrophe that destroyed 80 million trees. But we must remember that humanity was incredibly lucky. The incoming object was traveling at 15 kilometers per second. A slightly different angle, a mere 4 additional minutes of flight time, and the explosion could have occurred over St. Petersburg, the then capital of the Russian Empire, home to 1.6 million people. The effects would have been devastating, potentially altering the course of Russian history. The true legacy of Tunguska, therefore, is not as a mystery, but as a profound warning. Impact events of this scale occur with an average frequency estimated to be every few hundred to every few thousand years. The Tunguska event demonstrated the scale of the threat, and the Chelyabinsk event demonstrated the reality of the threat. This awareness led directly to a global shift in focus. The result was the formation of NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office, whose mission is to find, track, and characterize near-Earth objects. Furthermore, in 2016, the United Nations General Assembly declared that June 30th would be observed annually as International Asteroid Day, specifically chosen to commemorate the anniversary of the Tunguska impact. The ghost blast that tore the Siberian sky in 1908 and haunted scientists for a century has now become the central unifying symbol for the 21st century mission to protect Earth. It reminds us that while we explore beyond known history, we must also remain vigilant about the cosmic threats heading our way.